Hi everybody, it's Jess Knotes with Our Bipolar, and I'm here with another vlog, even though I was supposed to be doing a vlog today. But the last week has been really busy and I just didn't have the time to sit down and write a blog. So instead I'm doing the same topic, but in vlog form. So hope you enjoy it. Today I want to talk about that one time when I had to quit my job because of bipolar. Now this was a job, after college, of course, and there were other extenuating circumstances, but the main reason I had to quit was because of bipolar. Now I'll get into it a little bit more, but I want to say up front that I don't think anyone knew that I was leaving my job because of a mental illness. It's not like there was some outburst or I started acting much differently in the workplace. Nothing like that happened. But of course, I did leave the job because I was having symptoms. But at that point, I was still able to mask them. So what happened was it was around 2006. And right before I started this job, I had been in grad school and I had to leave grad school because of bipolar as well. Well, there were two reasons. Mostly I left grad school. I was going to American University for a master's in literature at the time. And I was halfway through the program and I realized, the reason I was going to grad school was because I thought I wanted to go on and get a PhD and be a professor. And as it went on, I realized, wow, like professors really have to publish a lot. And that really wasn't my thing. I mean, I was doing it because I wanted to teach and I wanted to teach at that level and, have discussions and like have fun, basically. Like that's really fun for me. So when I realized I wasn't going to be able to just do that and like have these discussions about books all the time, I decided, it wasn't really for me and I should leave school without accruing even more debt at the time. But I was having trouble with bipolar at the time. I was still on kind of my old medicines back then. I was on Depakote. It's a mood stabilizer. I was on Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. Most people with bipolar should not be on an antidepressant because it can cause cycling into mania, which was exactly what was happening to me all the time. And I was on those two drugs in particular for like 8 years before a different doctor got me off of them. So I was having a lot of trouble. I was having trouble completing assignments, papers. There were times I just wasn't showing up for class. I wasn't turning in assignments. So, I didn't need to be there anymore. So I left grad school and then I decided, since I didn't want to be a professor anymore, what was I going to do? So I went back to what I originally planned to do with my English degree, which was become an editor. So I decided, I need to get my foot in the door somehow. I have no real life experience as an editor. I did an internship in college. I was on the newspaper, some other things like that, but I didn't have any real experience. So I found this job opening, and the company was called Trial Graphics. And it was actually, a great company, and they provided support for legal teams, like all of their infographics and, all of these things that you would need in a courtroom to show, the jury, to show the judge. So there was a copy editor opening there, and so I interviewed and I got the job. And, before I took the job, they made sure to really, they even used this phrase, like, beat me over the head with the fact that there are unpredictable hours in that job. So let's say it's 5 o'clock and you're supposed to go home, and they might tap you on the shoulder right at 5 and say, oh, I'm sorry, you have to stay, like, we just got this job in, and you might be there until midnight, or you might be there until 8 p.m. I mean, you really don't know. So it was that kind of a thing. It happened very often that you'd have to stay on. Also for copy editors, I think it was one weekend a month I had to be on call. So work might come in, might not. It always came in, pretty much always. We were always very, very busy. And I did really well there. I was only there for about 1.5 years, and I became what they called like the head editor, or like the senior editor, where I was starting to train new copy editors in other cities. So it was going really well. It was just the hours were so unpredictable. And actually, the person who trained me at this job was Megan Bonnell, and she, she wrote the piece 2 weeks ago, 0 to 60 from cancer diagnosis to anxiety, which I thought was like incredibly insightful and interesting, and tragic, of course. But so she was the copy editor before me, and she trained me. But so as things were going, at some point during that 1.5 years when I was at Trial Graphics, I just decided I'm going to stop all my medication. I mean, I still had a psychiatrist, but I wasn't really seeing him much, and he wasn't really doing much for me. I was still on the Depakote and the Zoloft, and then he was sort of like adding in other stuff, but he never took me off the Depakote or the Zoloft. He was adding in stuff. He was adding in like sleep medicines, and like it was just not working. I was still cycling through mania and depression, really often, like every month, maybe even more so. So I just decided, I'm just gonna stop taking this stuff and see what happens. Like, not a good decision, but at the time I was really frustrated. So I stopped taking everything, and I also stopped taking Synthroid, which I took for hypothyroidism. I just stopped taking everything. So, so it was about 1 year later, I decided, there's no reason I can't be on the thyroid medicine. Like, I know my body needs it. I know it's really bad to be off of it. Eventually, like, from what I've heard, your body and your organs will shut down. I mean, I think that would take a very, very long time, more than 1 year in my case. But, so I thought, I'm gonna get a new, endocrinologist. So I did, and he put me back on Synthroid, which is probably smart, except I didn't know, and like, how would I know that as soon as I started taking the Synthroid again, and my thyroid were, I was at good levels. Up until then, I hadn't had any bipolar symptoms in the time I was off medication. But as soon as I started the thyroid medicine, those bipolar symptoms started back up again, like immediately. I had no idea that two things were so intertwined, which I found out later they are. But so this is probably the early summer, and I'm starting to have symptoms, and I'm still working, and I'm working these unpredictable hours. And when you're in your 20s and you live in a big city and like you meet people all the time, it's really hard to make plans with people if you're constantly either having to break your plans or you don't feel like you can make plans at all. So it just was really stifling, and it was really hard. It was really hard for me. I mean, I'm already an introvert. I already have a hard time like making friends and finding people I connect with. So, and then I started having these symptoms, and I really wasn't under the care of this doctor anymore, because I had stopped all medication. So I didn't know what to do, and the job was just really getting to me at that point. So I decided I was going to leave my job. It was the only thing I could really see to be good for me. And while I sort of got things back together with my bipolar and tried to find a new doctor, I was going to try to work as a copy editor and just do freelance work. And there was a company who, assisted with that in DC, and it was called the Boss Group. I don't know if it's still called the Boss Group, but it was called the Boss Group. So I gave notice at my job. I actually gave 3 weeks notice. I tried to, help them out. Like I said, I never had any kind of problems. I wasn't missing work. I was just miserable, and I was feeling awful because I was either manic or depressed, and it was just, untenable. So I gave my notice, I left my job, and then for not even a year, this is when I found Dr. Cox, who I still see to this day, my psychiatrist. He got me on lithium. He took me, I wasn't on anything, but he agreed I should not be on those other medications I was on. He got me on lithium. I ended up getting a job. So I was working freelance, like I said, but it wasn't a lot of work. It was like part-time. I wasn't getting full-time work. I was dipping into my savings, but luckily I had savings at that point. So I didn't have any trouble like paying my rent or anything like that. So then I ended up getting, it was a freelance job, but it was full-time, and it was in Reston, Virginia. And this was probably in 2007, probably in January of 2007. So I was only really freelancing part-time for a few months. So then I started working in Reston, and I was like, oh, I thought Reston was so far away from Silver Spring, where I lived, Silver Spring, Maryland. And I'm like, this isn't that bad. It's like a half-hour drive, So I was doing it every day, and I was doing really well at that point with the lithium. And then in, I guess, April is when Brian and I met on chemistry.com, so randomly. And he was in Reston, and literally the only reason I agreed to go on a date with him or to ever talk to him was because I had this freelance job in Reston, and I realized it wasn't that far away, but otherwise I would have never talked, because, especially if you live in DC, you understand, like, if it's like geographically inconvenient, you're just not going to do it. Like it's just so hard, like with traffic and with the time spent, it's just, you're not going to do it. But because, I had been driving to Reston, I was like, oh, I could, I'll give him a chance, even though he's in Reston. And then it all worked out. But yeah, it was hard. It was hard to have to leave a job knowing it was mostly because of bipolar. Honestly though, I wasn't going to stay at that job probably for more than a couple years. I wanted to stay at least 2 years for my resume. I didn't think, it was not a long-term situation, but I needed a stepping stone. And so I stayed 1.5 years instead of 2 years. But then, I met Brian in April the following year, and then in May is when I got my job at ASM, and that's where I still work. And it ended up being the stepping stone I needed, and even though I had to leave sooner, I was able to get my life on track after that and get on the right meds. And I'm just so thankful it all went the way it did, and I found the right doctor, and I found the right medicine for me, because apparently lithium, I didn't know this until recently, for people with bipolar, lithium only works for 1/3 of people with bipolar. I thought it would have been higher than that, but it's one of those things, like when it works really, really well. So that's my story for today. And I want you to know, if you're ever, if you're ever working at a job and your mental health is being affected, please, that is not for you. Please find another situation. It might not be the field is wrong for you, like just like for me, like I started out at ASM as a copy editor and then I moved up to being a production editor. But you need to listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to your brain. They're telling you. They really are. They're telling you exactly what you should be doing. And luckily that's what I did too. So, all right, sorry this went a little long today, but thank you for listening. Okay, have a great day. Bye.